Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pro Football Historian channel. I am Flynn Given. We already went over the Thursday night game a couple days ago, so let's go on to the Indianapolis Colts hosting the New England Patriots. Obviously, this game, the Colts jumped out ahead. New England, Mac Jones turned it over a couple times, and for the most part, this game wasn't too exciting. The Colts, dominated the game first half. Control the lead. Eventually got close at the end. You thinking maybe the Colts will blow this game like they kind of did like the Ravens game a few weeks ago. Even though give credit to the Ravens, I'm just like New England. Give credit, they came back. They haven't been in this position all year. Mac Jones really hasn't been in this position. Uh, but it ultimately, it came down to that run right before the 2-minute warning by Jonathan Taylor. And kind of like I said, I think I picked the Colts in an upset if I had to pick this game. And I kind of feared, even though New England's been pretty good against the run, I just like the last 2 years, they're a little bit better this year against the run and in terms of personnel to stop the run. But if the Colts leaned on it, they should be able to have success. On the average, Jonathan Taylor, mostly because of that one run, it was around probably 5 yards, I'm going to guess, before that run. But now it looks like it's way bigger than that. Actually, it's probably a little bit less than 5 yards, but still. Because of that run, Jonathan Taylor had a big game because of that. And they didn't get much from the passing game, unfortunately. Went through, I would say, a pretty dumb interception. I saw no way that ball was going to get completed. Um, he was like, he threw it. I think it was Jamie Collins or whatever, whoever it was, it picked it off, but there was even like Devin McCourty or someone behind that safety. So, dumb decision. I would say all three picks from both quarterbacks in total weren't great. They were really just dumb decisions overall. But the Colts come out with the victory. They are now in the wild card spot. Uh, they got some decent, opponents coming up. They got the Cardinals this week on Christmas Day, Saturday Night Football. Um, you know, it's hard to pick that game. I mean, obviously, I won't pick it right now, but I would lean toward the Colts for that game. Um, Now, let's go on to the next game. We get Carolina Buffalo. This game, honestly, score wise, was probably closer than they can never look close. But if Carolina had their kicker that got hurt in pregame warmups, Gonzalez, this could have been a closer game. They just forced Carolina to go for two. And the first drive, they went down the field, got to like the 8, and then they went for it because they couldn't kick a field goal and then didn't get anything. Carolina's defense, I mean, they did okay. I mean, point wise, it doesn't look great, but they're not getting much help from the offense. Um, Not a lot. Like I don't know what to say. Like their offensive, two different offensive coordinators now. You can see that similar to the Giants, it just doesn't really matter. They just quarterback coming in mid-season. You're not having great quarterback play. Obviously McCaffrey's not playing again, so it's really relying on their two. They got pretty good receivers, but they just can't get them the ball that often, and it's just not enough to keep up with some of the better teams in the league. And now they've lost what 9 out of the last 11 games. So, and for Buffalo, still in the wild card spot. I think they're going to make it. It's going to be hard the way they're playing to win all their games in the playoffs if they get in. It's just hard to rely on Josh Allen and these receivers. You got really just Diggs separating all these other guys. Like Davis can catch good in coverage, like tight coverage, but same with Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley, they just don't separate well. And it just puts a lot of pressure on their passing game and their quarterback. And they finally started running the ball, but it was mostly late. So I think that's a little. I would have to see more weeks of this kind of carry or workload for Singletary. Let's go up to the upset of the week. The Lions and the Cardinals. Kind of like I said, the Lions did upset the Cardinals last year. It wasn't as big because Arizona wasn't as good and Detroit was a little bit better. But don't know what to really say. The Cardinals obviously without Hopkins, they just didn't do much offensively and kept putting their defense out on the field, and the defense wasn't doing good, wasn't stopping the Lions. Craig Reynolds obviously had a big game coming off. I think he was on the practice squad. Um, he looks like he can do the job. I don't know if he's any superstar or anything, but good first game. Golf played a really good game, probably his best game of the year. So it was just a bad game overall, both sides of the ball. Like I don't know if it really was the Lions' best game, the Cardinals' worst game, and that's the reason. But the Cardinals they have to get back on track. Obviously the first seed is probably not going to happen now. Now they just need to win the division. This is the first road game they lost. Again, they have a decent home field at the Dome. I think you'd rather play home. Obviously, they have a lot more success on the road this year, but I think you'd rather be home. But they got a tough schedule coming up. Rams, play tonight, so it's coming down then for that division. Lions obviously now they've got themselves out of the number one seed, so I'm not sure if Lions fans even wanted them to win. But offensive line looked good, the defensive line looked good. It looks like it's coming together. So I mean, there's some promising things you'd see maybe going in the next year. And that's the good thing for the Lions, playing best football of the season lately. It might not always come out with victories. They're played a lot of close games this year, and this is the best game of the year for the Lions. You hope it continues because if they got the offensive line playing really well and the defensive line going the next year, they build the rest of the team a little bit. They could be something. Next game, now for the Jags, they lost this game. They're going to be the number one pick probably. Again, firing their coach didn't do a lot. Obviously gave up a kick return. It just they didn't give that up. It might have been a closer game. The Texans just kind of have the lead, control the ball. The defense is better than people give them credit. I don't know if it's like they might be like the 24th best defense. It's not that horrible. Like they can play. It's just they're always on the field, and at least this game they weren't. Again, Texans can't really run the ball. Offensive Mills, did fine. I think he had a pretty ugly pick, but Lawrence at least didn't turn over the ball for the Jags. They ran the ball okay, but it's just the offense is lacking. Not a lot to say. Dale Bevel has been a coordinator for a long time. It's just his best years when like Favre was the quarterback. Like I guess he had Russell Wilson too. So like he needs a really good quarterback that knows how to play the football in the NFL. It's just very basic offense, and we don't know what's going to happen with the Jags. A lot could change going into next year, kind of like it did this year from last year. Let's go with the Jets and then Miami. Kind of like the Lions. I'd say the Jets are playing a little bit better, especially offensively at least. Again, wasn't enough. Zach Wilson took care of the ball, I guess you could say. They did they did some creative plays. They had a lateral, if you watch that Barrios received. I forget who caught it, but so they tried a lot of trick plays and it worked. Other thing I would add is Tua didn't play well. There was a lot of dropped interceptions. They already had the pick six in this game. They had a pick early in the game. That's why the Jets kind of got the lead. It could have been worse though. The Jets really should have won the game, but they're obviously the worst team. They didn't, every opportunity they got, they didn't take advantage of it. in Miami, I would say for Miami, the good thing is there's some more of a run game the last few weeks, and this week with Duke Johnson, had a really good game statistically. He looked, like Duke Johnson of prior years, the Browns and the Texans, and teams like that. Um, so yeah, and you had a Gaskin a break 30-yard run. So that's good. I mean, with the offensive line, it hasn't played well, but it's looking better run blocking wise the last couple of weeks. And again, Miami's won 6 in a row. With 3 tough games coming up. To get to 10-7 somehow, still going to be hard. I mean, I would say great for Miami that they turned the season around. I'm not sure, if they have a really realistic shot of getting in with the terrible start they had. Because there's going to be a bunch of teams around 10-7, maybe even 11-6, 9-7, 9-8. So we'll see again. Let's move on to Dallas Giants. Really, offense for Dallas was fine. Still wasn't great. Booker looked pretty good for running wise for the Giants. So kind of like Miami, the run blocking is a little bit better than prior weeks. So they ran the ball. I don't know if they did enough carries. Like they were moving it fairly well to think you would keep running it. Glennon just wasn't good. Fromm wasn't much better, but if you could see, I think Garrett actually was helping this team. They wanted to put all the blame on Garrett. If you looked what Freddie Kitchens has done with them, it's been worse. Um, so kind of like last year, they kind of blamed the offensive line coach for the mistakes. It got kind of worse after that. They did the same thing this year. Fired the offense coordinator. Offense has got worse. So I think it's more of the personnel, and I think most people would believe that as well. And for Dallas, they're the number 2 seed through all this. They got a lot of the tiebreakers in favor of them because they're undefeated in the division. So they tie Green Bay, just tie them. They're going to win whether they tie anyone, they're going to be favored and get the advantage over them. The only thing is they do play Arizona. So whatever happens in that game, they lost them last year. If I had to pick that game, I'd probably go Arizona, even though they haven't played well. And if Arizona wins that, then Dallas, if they have any like 3-way tiebreakers, they're going to lose it. Just because the Arizona doesn't have that win over, or I should say direct tiebreakers, not 3-way. And they lost to Tampa Bay too. So, and that, a lot to come needs to be played, and we still don't know. But right now, they're in a good spot, number 2 seed. They're playing whoever the 7th seed is. It could be like the Eagles or Washington, the Vikings, Saints, a team like that. And the Giants obviously can't say much positive. Defensively, they played okay. They've been fairly okay on defense this year. They haven't been as dominant as last year. But, it's going to be another one of those losing seasons. And we'll see from here if they're going to stay with Daniel Jones, if they're going to stay with Joe Judge, David Gettleman either. I think Gettleman is the more likely to get fired. I'm not sure. Not sure if Judge will get fired, and I'm not necessarily saying he should or not. I think I would stick with him one more year, but I can completely see them cleaning house and moving on. But either way, let's go to this game. If you look statistically, the Titans dominated this game, kind of like the Texans game. They gave this game to Pittsburgh. Multiple turnovers in the fourth quarter. Most of them were just. When Pittsburgh made the play, were there, but it was dumb stuff. Fumbled snaps, bobbled catch by McMath, kinda, and then he gets hit and the ball goes in the air, and then that's a fumble. So it's just they for the first half, I say they playing what they should have done. They just ran the ball, took care of the football. and just played good defense and had the lead, and they just did that the second half. They would have won this game. Instead, they let Pittsburgh, who didn't do much all day, come out with the victory. If you can see, they couldn't run the ball, really couldn't pass the ball. Right now, Ben Roethlisberger, probably a Hall of Famer, but right now he's not. He's playing with like one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league right now. And but they're coming out with victories. You could say this 7-6-1 team. I would put most of it on Mike Tomlin for what he's done because they are not as good as the record. Defensively, though, they looked pretty good. They looked at how I would think the Pittsburgh defense would look this year. And over the last few weeks, they haven't played well. They're giving up 40 points a few times. Again, they're still alive. Tennessee is they're blowing the chance to get this first seed. Obviously, the tiebreaker over the Chiefs. Do not have against New England, though. So it's unlikely they'll get to the first seed, but a lot to still play. And I think they'll still win the division. They have to lose the last couple games and let Indianapolis win a couple to lose that spot since they have the tiebreaker over them. For Pittsburgh, they are ahead of Cleveland in the division, but behind Baltimore and Cincinnati. And Cincinnati already won twice. So the chances of division, I would say, are probably not going to happen. But could they win? Could they get a wild card spot? Yeah, I mean, they would have to win most of these games, if not all. And they're playing some pretty good teams coming up. So the Cincinnati and Broncos game, obviously Bridgewater got hurt. It looked relatively serious, so I'm going to assume Drew Lock's going to be playing the rest of the year. And for Drew Lock, the fumble was the big mistake. It's been the story of his career so far. He just makes one or two dumb mistakes, terrible mistakes. And because he can make, talent-wise, he can play in this league. Just doesn't make the greatest decision. It was kind of like what people were afraid of when he was in college, honestly. So, again, they ran the ball. They played good defense. It was kind of great defense to play Cincinnati and be able to just shut them down for the most part. But it was one big play, the Boyd, and they took care of the football, and that's how they came out with the victory. And then another key thing was right before half, the Broncos missed a long field goal, and with like 10 seconds, something like that, they allowed Cincinnati to get one play in field goal range, kick the field goal, and McPherson got it, which you could probably see here, 58-yarder. That's, you could say a 6-point swing. You could say it's, whatever, 3 points. That was a key thing in this game, and key play, key moment. And I will say for Cincinnati, they haven't ran the ball too well. Mixon's hasn't been getting many holes, hasn't got many yards the last few weeks. So, that needs to happen. And it's kind of unacceptable to have one catch, 3 yards for Chase. He's your best receiver, best player probably. He needs to get the ball. And Boyd, Boyd had a nice game. And Higgins didn't get the ball much either. So you could say that's just good defense on the Broncos, and it was. But they need to find ways to get it to the playmakers because you could see they didn't hand it off to Chase or anything. Move on to Atlanta, San Francisco. This again, the score doesn't show. This game could have been much closer. Atlanta had chance to get multiple times points, and they just didn't get anything. Offensive line, kind of like the Eagles game in week 1, got dominated. The 49ers defensive line, Bosa and them, just wreaked havoc the whole game. And this is why, San Francisco came on top. They're in a really nice spot for at least the number 6 seed. Division is probably not going to happen. They play the Rams one more time, so I guess there's a chance they could get the 5th seed. And I could see the Rams. I mean, the 49ers winning that. They usually beat the Rams, so I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with a victory when they play them. But they're in a nice spot. They're a kind of scary team. They can play with anyone. They have the talent. It's just obviously people don't really trust Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's just a fine starting quarterback. That's all I could really say. Around that 20 range, if not a little bit lower. You know, they got Kittle, they got Samuel. That's who they throw to and who try to get the ball to. Jeff Wilson had a nice game, and they also have they just whoever the running back is, Mitchell, Hasty, whoever, even Samuel. They usually have success with this running game. Been a strength for years for them. And Atlanta, I would say this is pretty much saying they're not going to make the playoffs. 6-8, around like the eighth or ninth pick in the draft, something like that right now. They're behind all these teams for this last spot, and they don't have any of the tiebreakers really. So I'm going to count them out. I know they're not officially eliminated, but and I don't know many people other than Falcons fans that really want them in. They're just not very talented, and I give credit for Arthur Smith. Get him the 6-8 because looking before the year, you're like 6 wins. That might be the ceiling for this team. So again, let's move on. I was actually at this Green Bay game. For the most part, I don't know what the set like. The Ravens really tried to get Adams out of the game, and he still came up 6 catches. It was only 44 yards, got a touchdown. So that really shouldn't happen. How much double? They had really two guys man coverage on him, and he still was got a few of his catches. Like when the corner is outside leverage, you should not let the receiver outside. And he did that multiple times. Scaling had a big game with a back injury. He played really well. He's physically talented, one of the fastest receivers in the league. It's the Packers offense. Their number two receiver. It could be Aaron Jones one week. He's Scaling. It could be Lazard, Jaguar, whoever. Just depends on what the defense is allowing. And this week it was Scaling. Lazard, I know, got a neck injury, but he should be okay. He played the rest of the game, I believe. Rodgers, it was very close that last, not the last drive, but they had a chance to score a touchdown when they got a short field because the Ravens went for it. They're on like 29 on a 4th and 6, giving Green Bay basically a field goal for free, but it almost was a touchdown. I wouldn't say it was a missed pass for Rodgers. He threw where he wanted to, but he just didn't trust Lazard would be there. So it resulted in an overthrow. And then Rodgers missed the first throw of the game. Other than that, Rodgers was on target pretty much all day. And for the second half, they didn't really get stopped other than the last drive where Rodgers got sacked. Remember, Green Bay's playing with all backup offensive linemen. You could say also the Ravens are playing with the backup quarterback. All backup corners, basically, because I think Jimmy Smith had COVID. All the other corners are basically hurt. Give credit for the Ravens staying in there. Obviously, it came down to a 2-point conversion. Huntley, what he was asked to do, played really well. I know people were really thinking he should be a starter. He's better than Lamar, all that. I think it's a little overreacting. Like, he did what he needed to do. He found Mark Andrews a lot and Brown. Brown was mostly short pass. Andrews just, a lot of those plays was beating Savage. I didn't really like what Green Bay did defensively. If you see that Savage can't handle Mark Andrews, you need to change up a little bit more than what they did. And they didn't contain very well. I would say they pressured Huntley, but they didn't contain him, and he just had there was too many extended plays for the Ravens to have. Green Bay, and they played Fields. They played Kyler Murray. Like they should have a better game plan, I should say. And this is probably the worst game Green Bay's defense has played. I know they played the Vikings, but in the Vikings game, they were in position to make plays. They just didn't. This game, they just allowed a lot of easy throws down the middle. And I just question that from a Green Bay standpoint. Obviously, a big loss for Baltimore. They lost 3 straight now. They are not winning the division at this moment. They've lost to the Bengals. They play the Bengals this week. They lose this game, which I know they're probably going to be underdogs. Well, they will be underdogs, and they're expected to lose. Going to have to try to get the wild card spot, but obviously we don't know if Lamar's going to. He's probably going to play next week. We'll see. It's just tough for them. They were in good position, number one seed, and now they're not even in a playoff spot in 3 weeks. And it's not going to get much easier in that for them. Got Pittsburgh, they got Cincinnati. They have another game in there, but we'll see how that goes. I would, if I had to pick, I think they're not going to make it. Green Bay's in a good spot. Thing is, they play the Browns this week. I think Baker Mayfield will play. Uh, Browns can give them some difficulties, mostly in the run game. But Green Bay's been pretty good against the run. Uh, who knows if Jair Alexander will play? Maybe David Bakhtiari comes back. So Green Bay is starting to get healthy. They got 3 more games. You got the Browns, you got the Vikings, and then you got the Lions. Lions obviously playing pretty good football. The Vikings last night came out with the victory, but it did not look good. I mean, they just couldn't block Keem Hicks and Robert Quinn. A lot of troubles. And again, Green Bay's also waiting for Zadarius Smith. I'm going to say he doesn't even play a regular season game. Maybe comes back for the playoffs. Again, Green Bay in good position. They're best record in the NFL. 1 game ahead of Dallas, Arizona, and Tampa Bay. They only played Arizona and they won that game. So as long as they tie Arizona, they're ahead of them. But Dallas, they don't play because they had Minnesota lost in the division. If it was a straight up with Dallas, I'm pretty sure Dallas would get the tiebreaker over Green Bay. And for Tampa Bay, they don't play them, but Green Bay should have the upper hand. I mean, I know we have the Tampa Bay losing twice to the Saints, which we'll talk about next. So I would say for them, they're in a good position. Should win the next 3. They're going to be favorites. They're the better team in all those games. I know they lost to the Vikings. They're home, though. Going to be a little bit more healthy. They're playing their best football recently, Green Bay, offensively. And again, we'll see. Moving on, next game is a lot of people were shocked by how the game played out. And people were like, well, Tampa Bay, they got all the receivers injured, running back and all that. But it's not like they were doing anything before that. Obviously, it hurts in the middle of a game to have the injuries. It's different because I know people comparing it to a lot of people. I want to compare Rodgers and Tom Brady, which is fine, but just comparing, like, for example, his 3 receivers were down, Rodgers had 3 receivers down, and I shouldn't say 3 receivers were Tampa Bay, but like the 3 playmakers, and it's not really the same when it's in the middle of a game. It's way different. When you're going into a game and those guys are probably going to play, you're prepared for it at least. Bad news is, though, Chris Godwin's out for the year. They do have the weapons. Obviously, they're very talented. They have personnel to still play well and move forward, but that's just a key player. And this might be in his last game as a Buccaneer. We'll see after the year. They still I just don't know if they're going to have the cap room to pay him. And he obviously deserves whatever money he gets. And for the Saints, the main reason they won this game is they took care of the football, and Tampa Bay didn't. And obviously they punted both a lot. But those turnovers, Tom Brady had the fumble. That was at least 3 points there. The interception obviously came late. It's not like too much against Brady. Like, this is what Brady is at this point. He can be flinchy at times when these kind of games happen to him, where he's getting harassed in the pocket. The offensive line isn't blocking well. The thing is, it's not going to happen very often. New Orleans is one of the only teams, other than the Rams maybe, that give the Tampa Bay offensive line problems. Uh, and I think Tampa Bay is going to go more to two tight end sets now, maybe. Turn around, Mike could be back, and like they should be fine. Maybe we'll max protect Brady more so he feels more comfortable in the pocket in games like this. But they got Carolina twice coming up. I don't expect them to lose any of these games coming up. They should win them all, and they should be the number 2 or 3 seed in the NFC. Could be the one, but I doubt it. And for the Saints, you keep your season alive. Get three games where they could win. They're not easy, but you know they definitely if they could beat Tampa Bay, they can beat almost any other team. So they need more from their passing game. Like obviously Kamara, they didn't have much from the running game either Sunday night. But I have faith they can run the ball. It's just they need something more than Callaway on those few plays to stretch the defense, because right now, kind of like with Tampa Bay, they just crowd the line and they know what you're going to do is either going to give it Kamara or run it with Hill. You might do some short passes or screens. Like it's just too predictable right now. And if you look at the NFC playoff picture, they're offensively they're one of the worst receiving cores right now. They can't make explosive plays. It's hard to win games like that and rely on your defense to win 9-0 kind of games. So Monday, I guess afternoon, night game, whatever, game that was moved to COVID. Sorry if you hear that noise. We got the Raiders coming out with the victory last second. Nick Mullins played fairly okay. Wasn't great statistically, but he did what he could. Didn't turn it over at least. And the Raiders, they really should have put this game away. And they allowed Cleveland to run the ball later in the game. And a couple of Peoples Jones catches allowed Cleveland to take the lead. They got the interception. Once they got the interception, you just need one first down to pretty much end the game. They couldn't do that. Gave the Raiders another chance. Played soft coverage. Actually, I should say on the one play they got in field goal range, they did blitz. Did not work. Gave the big play up to Zay Jones, I believe, and Raiders kicked the field goal. Raiders still alive. I highly doubt they're going to make it. So many teams that have 8 wins right now that chances they get all that help and keep winning is so slim. I don't really have any faith in the Raiders. They have one good game maybe against the Cowboys offensively. Otherwise, it's been lackluster. I know maybe Waller will be back and help them, but that's just my feeling on them. And for Cleveland, this really hurts them because now you got Green Bay coming up. You don't win that game, going to try to win the next 2, and then you have to get in 9-8. That's very unlikely. They're going to need help. Obviously, a lot of them play each other, so you got Green Bay, you got Cincinnati, I believe, and then Pittsburgh. I believe that's the Browns schedule off the top of my head. And they're all tough games, so possibly Cincinnati, because they play a lot of divisional games, just like Baltimore, they maybe can win the division, but the wild card spot, I just don't see it. Moving on, Minnesota and the Bears. I kind of talked about this game. Defensively, Bears did a ton of great things. You could say the Vikings did too. It was just the Bears kept afflicting themselves with penalties, and they just kept doing dumb things. And it allowed the Vikings get the good lead with 2 touchdowns. The 9 points is a little misleading. They got a touchdown on the very last play. Didn't matter. So, I mean, maybe they will get Horsted more involved. He made a good catch at the end. So maybe they'll play him more with the season basically over for the Bears. The Vikings, you keep your season alive. Really just going to be paying attention to this Washington Eagles game. They also have the Saints to worry about. And otherwise, they're in a decent position to play the Packers again, play the Bears again, teams they beat already. And they got another game this week. But they're no K spot. They need more from the pass team, though. The offensive line got dominated, and that's a concern. Uh, Offenses, Kirk Cousins turned over the ball a little bit the last couple of weeks. Or the beginning of the season, he only had like 2 picks. Get the 49ers interception, you got the Pittsburgh 2 interceptions. You got this game. Now this one, I still think it probably was picked, but it was probably a missed call where Justin Jefferson got he got basically tackled. That he got to the ground and just the ball sailed and was intercepted because of that. Fields look okay. He had some dumb plays where he got like sacked on a screen. He fumbled on a run. Um, Other than that, that's really all I could say. Just not a lot of offense. Defense made some plays. Um, that's it. Obviously, we got Seattle and the Rams tonight. I think the Rams will probably win that game, even though Seattle's played really good. They're in must-win right now. They have to win every game to be alive. And Washington, Philly. I think I'm just going to go with the more healthy team. I had to pick this game in Philly, and even though Washington's been in this position, they've had. I don't know if you would say they had the Eagles' number recently. Just even when the Washington's been bad and the Eagles been good, Washington's played them tight. And you just don't know with all the injuries and COVID, who's playing, how healthy they're going to be. Philly, it's been 16 days since they played, so maybe you never know. They might come out, rusty or whatever. Offensive line running game, though, I don't see how Washington really stops that. Many teams can't really stop it. The Eagles' offensive line's great. Herbert's really the only poor starter. Like everyone else is really good. So that's why I think Philly's just going to control the game on the ground. Washington has a great coaching staff, and they come out with the right plan. So you never know; it might be really close. Divisional game they play in a couple weeks after this because Eagles have the Giants after this, and then Washington again, then Dallas. Let's go over some of the. What do I want to say? Like the news this week. Takk McKinley got hurt yesterday. He's out for the year. You got Will Fuller done for the year. Looks like really hasn't done much for Miami. Next will be, reworks Kyle Rudolph and Riley Dixon, the punter for the Giants. Just a lot of COVID news. I'm just going over this quickly, get some updates. Goff has now COVID. Hopefully he'll be back this week. Kelsey has COVID for the Chiefs. Should be okay. Pat O'Connor got, injured, season ending like Godwin for the Bucks. AJ Brown should be returning. That really should help Tennessee. You really need him at this point because Julio Jones, another hamstring injury, and Julio Jones is really not the same player like he was in the rest of his career. Still can play, but it's just not the same freak of nature he has been. And that's probably just due to age and injuries. This is not surprising. If you really followed this injury, you knew Daniel Jones after the first game he missed. There's enough info out there. It's like he's not playing again this year. And we don't know about his future. We really depends on the coach. If they can get a veteran quarterback, I don't think they're going to be drafting anyone. So we'll see. And Jalen Smith, is going to be playing with the Giants. I don't know what to think of that. At this point, he didn't look great recently, and hopefully he turns his career around. He's not going to be on a team that's going to the playoffs or anything. And we already know Schottenheimer's calling the plays for the Jags instead of Bevel. You got more COVID news with Joey Bosa and Eckler. If you enjoyed the video, if you got any more ideas or things you want to see, let me know. And